Welcome to a brief overview of the Civic Precinct Planning Study. North Sydney's Civic Precinct stretches from the north of the CBD through to Falcon Street Crow's Nest and incorporates popular community facilities including Stanton Library, St Leonard's Park, the North Sydney Community Centre and local schools. Council is preparing this study for its much-loved Civic Precinct to plan for the arrival of the new northern portal to the Victoria Cross Metro Station and provide a framework to manage development in the coming years. The study is part of a broader effort to align local planning controls with the Greater Sydney Commission's North District Plan and North Sydney Council's North Sydney Local Strategic Planning Statement. Purpose and process of the planning study. With the northern portal to the metro station scheduled to open in the next few years on the corner of Miller and McLaren Streets, Council is expecting future population growth and development pressure in the area. The purpose of the planning study is to develop a long-term framework for managing development and improvements within the area. The reasons behind undertaking a planning study are two. Plan for the arrival of the new northern portal to the Victoria Cross Metro Station and future population growth. Ensure that Council's planning controls are aligned with the North District Plan. Review the current status of the Civic Precinct, considering the significant transformation of the adjacent urban areas, the CBD, Ward Street Precinct and St Leonard's, and to provide a framework to manage planning proposals within the study area and manage development pressure in the vicinity of the metro station. It's worth noting that under current legislation, developers are able to bypass Council with their development aspirations directly to the New South Wales Government. Having a firm vision framework places Council in a stronger position to reject inappropriate development proposals. As an example of this, 4 planning proposals have already been submitted within the study area. One of these was given approval to proceed for gateway determination and exhibition in February by the North District Planning Panel, contrary to Council's position. The objectives of the planning study are to outline a vision and urban structure for the Civic Precinct, establish the desired character and feel for the precinct that is supported by a series of urban design principles to guide future growth, identify a series of actions to achieve the vision for the precinct, and identify opportunities to deliver additional public domain, improve transport networks, and provide jobs and housing in appropriate locations. The planning framework identified for the precinct in this study will strengthen Council's position in managing future development in the area. The Civic Precinct Planning Study is one of the place-based studies identified in Council's Local Strategic Planning Statement, adopted in March 2020 with assurance from the Greater Sydney Commission. The LSPS was developed in alignment with the North Sydney Community Strategic Plan, which is the overarching document for the North Sydney Council LGA. In particular, actions L1.2 and L1.5 under the livability section direct Council to prepare planning studies for the Military Road Corridor and Northern Civic Precinct to examine the potential delivery of housing in the right locations, concentrating growth in and around existing centres, close to transport, infrastructure, services and facilities. Only support planning proposals that are consistent with Council-endorsed planning studies that have identified growth being delivered in locations that support the role of the centres and have critical infrastructure and services in place to support the North Sydney community. The study has been carried out in 2 stages. Stage 1 ran from April to August 2019 and consisted of preliminary community consultation and background research. This stage was carried out by Council's strategic planning team, and the outcomes were reported to Council in October 2019. Stage 2 runs from October 2019 until June-July 2020. The draft planning study has been put together during Stage 2 with the collaboration of a team of external consultants. The outcomes of Stage 2 are the subject of the current consultation after the draft planning study was endorsed by Council to be exhibited. The full planning study can be downloaded and reviewed at Council's Your Say North Sydney website, together with the background reports prepared by the consultants. Context of the Civic Precinct and the planning study. The Civic Precinct is located at the centre of North Sydney's local government area, immediately north of the North Sydney CBD. The study area is bounded by Falcon Street to the north, Pacific Highway to the west, the Warringah Freeway to the east, and McLaren and Berry Streets to the south. It is host to St Leonard's Park, Tedmack Civic Park, Council Chambers, Stanton Library, the Independent Theatre, several churches, and several schools. The precinct is surrounded by the major urban nodes of the LGA, which create a triangle around the precinct. Surrounding the precinct, there are two major high-density commercial cores, St Leonard's and the North Sydney CBD. 3 medium-density villages, being Crow's Nest, Neutral Bay and Camaray, and 1 educational zone, which contains the Australian Catholic University and other institutions. Over the past few years, each of these areas has been the subject of a detailed planning study by Council. These studies have resulted in the areas undergoing significant managed change. The North Sydney CBD review has resulted in a new wave of commercial development, the regeneration of the Ward Street precinct with a new civic hub and plaza, and the definition of a comprehensive public domain strategy. St Leonard's Crow's Nest is part of a planned priority precinct and expected to accommodate significant growth. The Military Road corridor has been impacted by the B line, and it is currently under review with the Stage 1 Future Directions paper recently on exhibition. Further to the changes in the surrounding areas, Sydney Metro City and Southwest will open in 2024 with 2 stations within the North Sydney LGA. Victoria Cross Station will have 2 entries, one in the CBD on Berry Street and a second one within the Civic Precinct on the northeast corner of McLaren and Miller Streets. This second entry will have lift access only and focused on providing access to the existing public facilities and open spaces. The arrival of the Metro, plus the changes to the surrounding areas, have transformed the context of the Civic Precinct and have prompted the need to do a planning study to review how the area may change and how this is best managed. It's important to note that the Civic Precinct is located at the centre of a generous network of green open spaces and reserves, with St Leonard's Park and Tedmack Civic Park at the core of the precinct. This range of parks and reserves across the LGA that developed over time along old creek lines and valleys have the potential to create a strong green network of public spaces for North Sydney and become a defining characteristic of the area. The Civic Precinct is located at the end of 3 of these valley creek lines. The diagram on this page shows how this network of public parks and reserves create a green link from Port Jackson to Middle Harbour and provide a much needed buffer between the different high and medium density areas around the Civic Precinct. Overlaying the urban nodes framework and the green link of parks and reserves, there is a transport network with regional, metropolitan and local routes all converging in the Civic Precinct. The area is a keystone for the North District Transport Network. Key needs and objectives for this network are to develop more east-west active transport connections from harbour to harbour, complete the north-south pedestrian route across the CBD from North Sydney train station to St Leonard's Park, implement the regional cycle network along West and Ridge Streets and the Pacific Highway, and minimise the impact of regional traffic routes by keeping regional traffic to Pacific Highway, north of Five Ways, Falcon Street, and the Warringah Freeway. Having developed this analysis of land use nodes, green spaces and transport networks around the precinct, and as part of the developing vision and principles for the study, community input was sought to understand the aspirations and needs of the community for the area. During Stage 1, the community was asked to participate through a survey, a mapping tool, and an open form. Interviews with relevant stakeholders also took place. The outcomes of this stage were a series of valued places and a set of community priorities shown on this page. The community priorities mostly refer to the need to preserve the heritage value and village feel of the precinct, as well as to maintain, improve and increase the open spaces. Carefully managing future development was also one of the points raised. Valued places included St Leonard's Park, West Street, Tedmack Civic Park, and Ridge Street, among others. 2 further community workshops were held at the beginning of Stage 2 in late November 2019. Community input from these workshops centred around the need to control future development, manage traffic congestion, preserve and upgrade current parklands, and provide more community facilities. Input was also provided in relation to acceptable heights for new development across the precinct. The areas along Pacific Highway, McLaren Street, and east of Walker Street were deemed to be more suitable for higher buildings, whilst the core of the study area was viewed as an area that should remain as is. Having consideration to the community's aspirations and input and the surrounding urban and planning context, the draft study has developed an urban framework for the precinct to guide any future interventions in the area. The draft study envisions the precinct as a modern, connected and attractive civic and educational campus, with a strong network of pedestrian links and open spaces, a low-scale village feel, and a leafy appearance. This vision focuses on creating a unique and strong civic centre, a central point in North Sydney's Green Link, and an accessible and connected precinct that benefits from the arrival of the metro. In order to implement and deliver the vision for the precinct, a series of design principles has been developed. These principles deal with the preservation of the heritage, fine grain, and village feel of the core of the study area. They acknowledge the need to carefully manage any future growth and limit development to the edges of the precinct, near the CBD and Pacific Highway Crow's Nest. Promote prioritising walking and cycling, as well as increasing the amount of public open space in the precinct where possible. And capitalise on the opportunities resulting from the Victoria Cross Metro Station by promoting small to medium-sized business and affordable housing options next to the CBD. These urban principles have been translated into a design concept for the precinct and a series of actions to be implemented. The Civic Precinct will continue to be characterised by older educational institutions, heritage-listed Victorian terraced houses, the greenery of St Leonard's Park, and a cluster of civic buildings and public open space at the precinct centre. The village feel of the precinct will be preserved and enhanced to strengthen the precinct's anchor role within North Sydney's Green Link that connects all the parks and reserves from Port Jackson to Middle Harbour and provides a lower density green break between the 2 high density areas of the North Sydney CBD and St Leonard's. This distinct civic and education campus will be complemented by vibrant mixed-use zones at the northwest and southeast of the precinct that will act as transition zones towards the CBD and Crow's Nest, allowing for more job and housing opportunities. The Civic Precinct will provide breathing space between the larger centres of North Sydney CBD and St Leonard's, be a contrast in built form, uses and activity with a complementary approach. The area will provide green spaces, local cafes, and quiet streets that offer an opportunity to escape the hustle and bustle of the CBD. The civic facilities and sports grounds will cater for the growing working and resident population. Small to medium-sized businesses focused on the education and medical sectors will provide support to the existing hospitals and schools. Businesses that can serve and support the big companies of the CBD will find smaller and cheaper tenancies within the precinct. The following actions have been identified in order to achieve the desired vision and design concept for the precinct. Firstly, create more jobs and housing opportunities near the metro. Secondly, increase amenity and activation along the Pacific Highway. Thirdly, support small to medium-sized business growth. Number 4, preserve heritage, add value. 5, undertake further review of Falcon Street. 6, undertake further review of the Civic Core. 7, provide guidelines for education facilities. 8, improve public open space. And 9, identify access and active transport network improvements. Action 1. Create more jobs and housing opportunities near the metro. The arrival of the metro on the corner of Miller and McLaren Streets and the implementation of the Ward Street Precinct Master Plan will transform the character of McLaren and Walker Streets. The area will be a vibrant and active mixed-use fringe of the CBD with a variety of commercial, community and residential uses. The main objectives of these actions are to deliver jobs and housing growth on the fringe of the CBD in areas with additional transport infrastructure, to provide a height transition between the commercial core and lower conservation area, to protect the amenity and sunlight of existing and proposed public open spaces, to complete the north-south laneway link from the train station to St Leonard's Park, to preserve Ridge Street Heritage Conservation Area. Additional open space opportunities have been identified in this area, the Metro Plaza and Hampton Street Pocket Park, as well as a couple of opportunity sites that could be redeveloped with contextually appropriate heights. Potential public benefits should be included as part of any future development of the site adjacent to the Metro portal. A statement to that effect has been included as part of the design guidelines for the site. Action 2. Increase amenity and activation along the Pacific Highway. The Pacific Highway is a metropolitan corridor that connects a series of town centres or urban nodes. Some of these nodes are dense, such as the North Sydney CBD or St Leonard's. Between these high-density nodes, there is a need for a well-defined, low-scale edge that still provides enclosure and legibility and offers a more human-friendly streetscape. The study proposes to create a medium-scale streetscape area with a maximum height of 4 stories between North Sydney CBD and St Leonard's that is more human scale and pedestrian friendly. Transition either side of the Civic Precinct along the Pacific Highway through increased building heights, 8 to 12 stories, into the high density areas. Increase amenity and activation along the Pacific Highway. This will be achieved by widening the footpath, providing more commercial floor space, and increasing the permeability of the Pacific Highway towards the core of the precinct and providing opportunities for cafes and other retail off the main road. Cycleways will also be implemented along the highway. Action 3. Support small to medium-sized business growth. The Civic Precinct is an attractive location for the residential and commercial market. It's an alternative for companies who want to be close to the CBD and do not want to pay the premium rents charged. Both residential and commercial demand is high. In order to achieve the regional job targets set for North Sydney by the Greater Sydney Commission and support the employment growth of the CBD, it's important to maintain and increase commercial floor space within the Civic Precinct. Through a selected increase of the minimum non-residential floor space within the precinct, there is an opportunity to provide over 3,000 additional jobs within the precinct in the long term, with minimal changes to the built form. These additional jobs will offer an opportunity for business that can serve the CBD and support the medical and educational institutions in the area. Action 4. Preserve heritage, add value. The Civic Precinct has 93 local and state heritage listed items and 4 heritage conservation areas. Of these, 91 are locally significant and 2 are state significant. It's important to protect these heritage buildings and conservation areas for future generations, as they define the local identity and unique character of the area. At the same time, we must ensure that the area is well maintained, remains relevant, activated and used, so it is equally important to allow for careful and considered additions that add value to the area and provide updated spaces for modern needs. This action encourages improving the amenity of the streetscapes within the conservation area and identifies the possibility of exploring new ways to activate the laneways and add secondary dwellings where appropriate without detracting from the character of the area. Action 5. Undertake further review of Falcon Street. There is some uncertainty around this corridor due to the different state government infrastructure projects currently ongoing, in particular the Department of Planning's Planned Precinct Investigation Area and the Western Harbour Tunnel Road project. It is recommended that once the outcomes of these 2 projects are known, A detailed urban design study is undertaken of Falcon Street, focusing on the area between Pacific Highway and West Street. The corridor is a major traffic thoroughfare connecting the Military Road corridor with the Pacific Highway. It's also the transition between the Civic Precinct and Crow's Nest Village. Being able to combine both locational functions will be key in order to achieve a successful outcome. As per the endorsed Traffic Master Plan for the North Sydney CBD, Council would like to explore the potential of diverting regional traffic from the Pacific Highway to Falcon Street Ringa Freeway to reduce traffic volumes in the CBD and increase the amenity of the Pacific Highway as per Action 2 in this study. At the same time, that would be an opportunity to explore a potential reconfiguration of the Five Ways intersection to increase pedestrian amenity and quality and quantity of open space. Action 6. Undertake further review of the Civic Core. The Civic Core is bounded by McLaren, Ridge, Miller and West Streets and includes a high amount of publicly owned assets. There is an opportunity to improve pedestrian connections through the block and to examine the relationship between the different buildings to make them more open, collaborative and efficient. At the same time, the potential for future expansion of community uses as the population of the area grows should be explored. The area should be guided by a master plan, able to connect all the existing public buildings and civic institutions within the block. This will create a seamless environment that fosters collaboration, sharing of resources, and a welcoming space for visitors and workers. A further detailed study is recommended to address these opportunities and prepare a master plan for the future of the block. Action 7. Provide guidelines for education facilities. Schools in the Civic Precinct are generally walled and isolated, having limited interaction with the surrounding environment. Students are largely driven to and from school, and there are few comfortable pedestrian connection or areas to gather and play. The Civic Precinct could evolve into a civic and education campus with a strong relationship between schools and the wider precinct area. Schools have the opportunity to open up within reason and maintaining the required levels of safety and privacy and activate the streets. Through this action, the planning study provides preliminary general guidelines and principles to guide any future development of the schools in the area. These principles are based on integrating the educational facilities into the neighbourhood by improving their interfaces with adjoining streets and the public domain. Action 8. Improve public open space. The study has identified 4 main opportunities to improve the public domain within the precinct. Number 1, implementing the St Leonard's Park Landscape Master Plan. Number 2, implementing the Civic Spine Miller Walk up to Falcon Street. 3, providing additional open spaces as shown on the map. And 4, improving walking, cycling and public transport safety and amenity on major urban corridors, the Pacific Highway and Falcon Street. Action 9. Identify access and active transport network improvements. The arrival of the Metro to the corner of Miller and McLaren Streets provides an opportunity to improve the access to the precinct and its connection to the wider metropolitan context. In particular, it's critical to connect cycle and walking routes to the new Metro station, complete the North-South CBD pedestrian link coming up from the Ward Street precinct through Elliott Street and arriving at St Leonard's Park, as well as implementing further east-west connections that will link the overall walking and cycling network of the Green Link. Key improvements and new potential links have been identified and are shown on this map. They would maximise the impact and reach of the Metro station and enable the precinct to be within 800 metres walking of the Metro stations. As part of the study, Council has identified a series of potential public benefits that address the community's aspirations as well as existing needs for the area. These are a potential new location for Kelly's Place Children's Centre, a community centre and community meeting rooms, public domain upgrades as per Action 8, affordable housing provision, public art and sculpture. Some of these benefits could be delivered via agreements with private landowners to redevelop opportunity sites. Others may be delivered through Council's Section 7.11 Developer Contributions Plan. It's worth noting that there are not many sites expected to undergo significant changes under this planning study. This limits the capacity to deliver on the desired public benefits that may normally be leveraged from new development. This concludes the overview of the Civic Precinct Planning Study. The draft study is on public exhibition from Thursday the 4th of June until Monday the 20th of July 2020. You can view the full planning study together with the background report or make a submission online at Council's Your Say North Sydney website. We hope you enjoyed the presentation and encourage you to have your say by making a submission to Council. Thank you.